Welcome to the Your Limitless Leadership Podcast with Jenny and Brent Widman. Here, we believe leadership isn't just about titles. It's about how you show up in every aspect of life. Whether you're leading a business, building a legacy as an entrepreneur, guiding your family, or striving to lead yourself first, this podcast is for you. Join us as we dive into real conversations about growth, decision-making, and the courage it takes to lead with purpose. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and equipped to become the limitless leader you are meant to be. This is Your Limitless Leadership Podcast. Let's lead without limits. All right, welcome to Your Limitless Leadership. And I tell you what, this one's going to be a good one because it's somebody that I have known for years, and just his mentality, his work ethic, his leadership, who he is as a person. And I guess we've probably known each other for, it's almost 7 to 10 years now, which is crazy when you think about it. It's been quite a while. I was trying to figure out the math on it, but I'm going to introduce Mr. Patrick Carson at DRG.
Hey, how you doing, everybody?
Grew up in Iowa, moved to Minnesota in 2001, so you can call him an Iowegian. That's fine. We'll let that fly. Started his real estate at DRG in 2007. So you've been there for what, 18 years now?
Mm-hmm. Since the beginning.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The broker and owner, we had worked together previously, and he said, "Hey, I'm in real estate. No more bosses. Quit your job. We'll make a bunch of money. Things are amazing." So I quit my job in late 2006 and got my license, started 2007, and then everything went sideways with the market.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you just went on blind faith is what you're
telling.
How did that happen? Like what?
Blind faith and no money. My now wife, then girlfriend, had moved to New York to go to grad school. And I'd quit my job. I'm like, I had to do something different with my life. Joe Grenay, the broker owner, had said, "Hey, come do real estate." I went and got my license, started in January, and again, everything started sliding the wrong direction quickly, which turned into the Great Recession.
Yep.
And I told my then girlfriend, "Hey, if I don't make any money by April, I'm going to just pack my car and move to New York and live with you and figure it out." And nothing was selling. Everyone we talked to said, "Hey, I'd love to sell my condo downtown." That was our market. But there's no buyers, and foreclosures were starting to happen, short sales. It was just kind of a bloodbath in the making. And one guy in the office that was part of the four of us that were really the start of DRG said, "Hey, I know a guy out west that's like renting out people's houses. That's what he does for real estate. We should rent people's condos out." So we're like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I didn't have a computer then, and I was too broke to buy one. So I'd come in at 5 a.m. and work until 9 when the other agents would come in the office. Then I'd go to the library and work on computers at the library down the street downtown. And then after they went home at 5, I'd work until, midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, just trying to build business. And back then, a lot of it was like the Craigslist and all those things. And then by April, I was out of money, didn't have anything going on. And then I made, I think, like $8,000 one week in April. And I'm like, wait, what happened? Well, we had gotten all these properties for rent, and we started renting them out downtown, these condos, because no one could sell them. And then fast forward, within a year, we had accumulated, I think, like 400 properties downtown. And then it got to, I think, 700 or 800 by 2008, 2009 that we were leasing and managing maybe half of those. And the game plan was to help them rent them out, get to a better market, and then help them sell them, and then turn the renters into buyers. That was the whole game plan. And by summer, I had taken over the leasing part of the business, and Joe Grenay, the broker owner, focused on the sales side and his team, and then we tried to grow it from there. So yeah, that was how I got in real estate.
Okay, I got to backtrack because breezed right over the one. You started this with no money, no anything, and really
negative money. Negative money.
And I didn't know the story. You just bet on yourself, basically, is what you did.
I just thought if I work my ass off, especially everyone was getting out of the business at the time. And there's a book, Blue Ocean Strategy, that a lot of people, that was actually sent to me by another realtor many, many years after that, but I had heard of it. And the Blue Ocean was, if you're in a sphere where no one else is, you can succeed if you put your work, you work really hard at that blue ocean where no one else is, fishing per se. And nobody back then, all the realtors had all these fat years of amazing, sales, lots of activity. Nobody was doing leasing, and all the agents were too good for it. And I was too poor and, too young to not capitalize on it. And a lot of it was trial by fire and trial and error. We had no idea what we were doing, and no one else was there. No one was in that space. And I just kind of dedicated, my career and life to it for, those years there over, the recession, to help people out and get their places rented and build a business that would eventually turn into hopefully selling off those condos and when the time was right, and helping people buy them when the time was right. So,
I mean, even going back to a couple things you said there, where your work ethic, first and foremost, because you said I got nothing else to do, is what it sounds like. I might as well work. Well, build something. So 5 a.m. to almost midnight, if you will, because you just did it. And then the other aspect of agents being, I mean, once we get really good at what we do, I think that happens at time. Our ego says, well, I don't need to do that. Yet there's the people like you that go, I'm going to do it.
Well, yeah, there was a huge imposter syndrome with me back then too, because all these agents, they were all coming off huge years. And so I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm young. I don't think I was taken super seriously. I was also looked at kind of a second-class realtor because I was doing leasing. And so I think that part of it drove me to build something, since it wasn't traditional real estate, since I wasn't doing the big property sales, that I wanted to kind of build something that competing with myself of how hard can I work? How, focused can I be on this, hedgehog, if you want to go all the way back to that reference, and can I just work? And I knew I didn't know anything about business. I had been in sales and knew I was good at that, and knew that I could work hard and do the right thing and help people out. But I figured if I can just outwork my income, my lack of knowledge and cover up, my lack of business acumen with just, working my tail off, that it would pay off. And it did. It did. And it was really building things as we went along. Now, pretty well-oiled machine in that regard. And it did evolve, which we can get into more as the market improved. But it was really just like, hey, let's figure it out. And it was me and a couple other guys, and we just worked our butts off until it kind of took off on its own.
What did you do to find, because this is a different entity and it's like a whole different world. How did you find people, what to lease and help and what have you?
Well, it started out that one of the gentlemen that worked with us, he had found Craigslist was huge back then, to get granular. And so all these people would put their condos or their townhomes or whatever on Craigslist, and they'd be, to try to find a renter. And so he would just send them a message like, hey, I can help you out doing this. And then a website was built, and then we started mailing buildings saying, hey, owners needed to place our tenants. And then we would turn around and, use Craigslist or the website, or, Zillow didn't exist back then. None of these third-party websites existed. So it was really just word of mouth, Craigslist, the website. Downtown is not a big space. Word gets around very quickly. It's grown a ton, obviously, since 2007. But it was a small community that you were known about quickly. And then, of course, the association management companies started using us to help their residents that came to them and said, "Hey, I can't carry this place anymore empty. I had to move because of kids or job or whatever." So, there was a big part of, relationship development with those associations and management companies and such. So,
touch on something here where you said downtown Minneapolis, and if you don't know, Pat, I don't know how do I say this. Patrick is one of the best, if not the best, over year at doing what he does. And that's why, just to have this to get in the mind of where you're at and what you have created, like, what kept you going? Why did you keep doing this?
Well, I just like to work hard. It's kind of in my DNA, coming from Iowa, growing up on a farm and all that. So, and as a kid and a young adult, how much money someone made was never kind of the hallmark or like how people were impressed in Iowa. It was, oh, that guy's a concrete worker. That guy works hard. That was how it was. And when we were kids, baling hay or shoveling pig crap or whatever, it was always a competition on who could get the most done and who was the hardest worker. That was literally my friends and brothers and all that. It was always who could get more done. And so I think that was really the mindset, which drove me. I don't really care about real estate. I'm not in love with homes or design or, what wallpaper you put up or what light fixtures have. That I can sell widgets. For me, it was more of like just competing against myself and how much I could work and build a business. And then it morphed into, how could I help these agents build their business? How could I get admin in a position to have a career themselves and make enough money out of production? And then it was, how can it evolved, and I should backtrack a little bit. As we got into 2012, 13, 14, the market completely took off again. They started building condos again. Then the apartment world started taking off. And then condos started selling and apartments started selling, or condos, townhomes, lofts, they all started selling again. And I looked at it and I said, okay, I'm getting to eat the steak as they sell, but I'm not going to have any milk left here pretty soon from the cow. And I need to keep enough cows to milk. And because I was so scared of ever going through a recessionary period again, I did not choose to jump over to sales when that happened, which is probably the more lucrative side of it. I wanted to build a business that was a little bit, recession proof, that maybe I'm not going to have those huge years that some sales agents would, but I was never going to have a year where it just nothing was happening. And because leasing is a recession proof business, and people always think, well, when the economy is really good, leasing goes down. Not the case. In fact, it took off. So as condos and lofts and townhomes got sold off, I started looking around saying, how can I continue to feed this business? We have all these renters. What do we do with them? Well, it was then jumping into the apartment multifamily space and placing these tenants that we've gotten into apartment buildings. And it coincided right when this huge apartment boom began in Minneapolis. So timing and luck has a lot to do with that as well. And so we started showing apartment buildings and realizing the staff in these apartment buildings it was not a career for them. It was not something they cared about. Yeah. Getting someone placed, giving good customer service, being a good salesperson was not top of the list for these people. It was just a kind of a placeholder job. So then I sat down and started mapping out, how can we get into this space and not just place tenants in these buildings, but actually be the representatives at these buildings. And that coincided with the big apartment building boom downtown. So we did a few small apartment buildings that we leased up, and we outperformed their pro formas, which is, how quickly they could rent a place out for how many, what their chunk rents were, price per square foot. So we were outperforming that by 2, 3, 4 months in these smaller buildings and by 5, 10, 15 cents higher. So these apartment developers were making really great money off of that. Then we got a big break with a big apartment developer downtown called Sherman Associates, and we rented out a string of buildings with them that went really well, and that turned into, over that late teens up until even through COVID, some really great successes renting out Class A, high rises downtown. And then as we got in past COVID, I started continuing to build that business with a gentleman named Luke McDonough, who is quite the follow on social media. But then also getting into development, raising money for developers. And my niche was as kind of a fourth pillar of my business of doing pricing, floor plans, finishes for these buildings. So they would hire me to consult and say, hey, here's what these should be priced at. Here's the marketing strategy. And then they would hire the staff to come in and lease out the building. And the goal is you meet all these people. Someday they're going to buy a place, and then you take all those renters, build that relationship, and move them to their next phase in their life. So really a cradle to grave relationship of someone moves from Chicago, they rent a place for $1,500.
Yep.
Then they get the net promotion and they rent a place for $2,000. Then they move in with their girlfriend and now it's $3,000. Well, hey, we should buy a place. They buy a place and they want to move to the burbs and they want to rent their condo, and then they buy the house in the burbs and then they come back. And so it's really that whole life cycle of a consumer wanting to, use our services and doing a good job so they want to. So that's really the hard part. And I joke all the time. I say that one of the best parts about the buying and selling part of real estate is that no matter how good or bad the transaction goes, once it closes, once everyone signs the paperwork, everyone goes their separate ways. When you sign a lease with somebody, you've got 12 months of an owner or a renter or an apartment building. Everything can go wrong in that 12 months, because when you sign it, the fun just begins. It doesn't end there. Now that's when the hard work starts. How do you make sure that owner's happy with the tenant? How to make sure that tenant's happy with the owner? How do you make sure that renter that you said, oh, you should live in this apartment building, it's a really good community, how do you make sure that they do have a great experience when a lot of it is completely out of your control? So that's the most challenging part of the leasing world is how do you control the how do you control the uncontrollables? Because you're not the owner of the property. You don't make those decisions. You're not the renter. You can't make them pay rent on time. And how do you make sure an apartment building takes good care of their renters, or vice versa, or place good people in their place? So that's really, it's so much more than just getting a person a place to rent.
So, okay, I got to go back to this too, because when you first started into this, you saw an opportunity, you took an opportunity. Basically, you built an opportunity. I shouldn't say took it. You built it from nothing. And then you're in it and you see the relationships, and I'm guessing you're building partnerships with these buildings and complexes and all these different, and then you see another opportunity that front desk person is just kind of indifferent, is there to be there. So you're like, we can do that better. I want to say, how do you see that? Or how did you notice that? But how did that come about? Was that just something that you were like, it was an evolution of things? Or one day you're like, well, that person's not very good, we can do better than that. And then how do you build a relationship, or how do you sell that to the
Well, I'll say this. I'm self-employed. Every realtor is self-employed.
Yep.
It's a nights and weekend job. It is you have to be on call all the time. The corporate world is set up for failure insofar as the service industry when it's business to, personal relationship.
Yep.
And why is that? Well, if you're W-2'd and you work in an apartment building, you show up at 9 and you go home at 9 or 5 or 6. People want to see places to live when they're not at work. So from 5 till 9 at night or Saturday mornings. And time again, we would get phone calls from people inquiring about properties we have. And they'd say, hey, I'm flying in town on Friday night. I'm there for a day, flying back Sunday from Baltimore, Chicago, Dallas, wherever it is. And I want to see some places. Great. Let's get you set up. Are you looking at anything else? Well, I've called all these apartment buildings and I haven't gotten a call back. Or I went to go see this. I called to see this apartment building. They said, well, we're booked on Saturday. We can't get you in. And I hearing that made me crawl out of my skin. You're literally telling someone you can't buy my product. And I thought to myself, if I was the owner, operator, or developer of that building, and I knew that someone moving here who clearly is a qualified candidate because they're moving here for a job,
for sure,
or someone that's moving from the suburbs because they don't want to make the commute anymore, but they work at Target or Wells Fargo, or this was a huge one pre-COVID, empty nesters. They just sold their house for $1 million in Edina and want to move downtown and rent for a year to experience it and see if it's a great fit. Oh, sorry. The only slot I have this weekend is Saturday at 2:00. I can't do 10 a.m. It was mind-blowing that the amount of business that these owner-operators were losing or opportunities they were losing, not because these employees were bad people or bad employees. Yeah. They just, the bandwidth, they are not 1099 people. There is not an eat what you kill. It's just not how the whole business model was set up backwards. And so this is what I would present to these owner operators. You're spending this many thousands of dollars every month on marketing, and you're generating the leads, and yet maybe their ratio was, I think, like a 4-to-1, meaning for every 4 leads that came, or no, it was 10-to-1. Okay. For every 10 leads that came in, 2 would set an appointment and 1 would rent. And I would say we can get to 10, 5, 3. And so we would, and I would show them the numbers with buildings. I mean, there was one building, we ended up, I think, their original pro forma was $2.63 a foot. And their pro forma was, hey, you will be done in 15 months getting it rented. By the time we left, they were at $2.86 a square foot, and we were done in 12 months. And we were hired the week before it opened. So we got no pre-leasing time. Point being is, when I asked that gentleman for a reference on a building downtown that people might be familiar with, right next to Target Field, called North Loop Green, it's kind of the only high rise in the North Loop. The reference he gave to their executives were they rented the building out for too much and far too fast. So it actually affected me negatively. And they said, well, why? He said, well, then when we went to shop the building to sell it, people didn't believe that we could sustain those numbers, and people didn't believe that we could rent it that quickly. And so we outperformed to that level. And it wasn't because our salespeople are the greatest salespeople in the world. It is because they were available. They answered the phone. They called people instead of text them or sent an email through some CRM system. And that was the performance part of it that's just missing in that multifamily apartment world where we've been successful. The biggest challenge we have is we don't have an endless supply of that lease up. I mean, they have to continue to be built, and of course, nothing's being built right now. So, and that's when I said, okay, well, if I have to wait for someone to build a building and solicit them 2 years before it's finished, why not get into making sure things do get built that we'll have a piece of? And so that's been the next iteration of my business, is trying to, I guess, force buildings to get built, which has been a learning experience, which I have failed a ton so far in that business and made a lot of mistakes, but I have my other pillars of business to make sure that failure is an option.
But if you can get what you just said, when you get and you show them the numbers that I will get that filled up, it's almost a no-brainer to build.
You would think.
Yeah, I'm sure there's obviously numbers that have to work out, but still.
Culture is a huge part of it because you'll have an owner-operator that would be completely on board, but that you have a management company. And sometimes it's a multinational or multi-state national company, a big box national management company, that them losing that leasing part of the business is not something they want, even if that's what the owner operator wants. So there's a culture part of it of they don't want that. They want their own employees to be doing the work so they can control them, or they want that revenue, or the owner operator is so used to the days in which all you did was put a sign in the front of the apartment building and people just came through the door. They see the expense of it instead of the value of it. So a lot of it is me selling of, here's how your numbers change. And one building downtown, a very nice Class A building, by the time we left, because we hit our pro forma 4 months ahead of theirs, they, I think, were making $850,000 a month more because of how much higher we were in performance for price per square foot and how much it was occupied. They were $850,000 ahead.
Wow.
A month. But then when we left, they didn't rent out another place for 4 months. And they cut us. We usually stayed till about 95%. They cut us at 85, and they sat at 85 for 4 months. And my question to them was, why would you not let us finish the job? So, but that was because the management side of it said, well, we can take it from here. Oh, so there's a cultural aspect. There's an expense versus, revenue aspect of, hey, are you guys worth the money? And so there's boots on the ground versus management versus owner operator or developer. So there's a whole, the management of the relationship is what I do mostly. With
more about that, because that's the second time you touched on that. With you talk about leasing, they're in it for 12 months. It's not like where we just go our separate ways and now we're done.
Yeah.
So you have to develop relationships there, tenants, and then over here with people that own it too at this time. Like, what are the things, I don't want to say that you do differently, but what are some things you do to make that happen?
With private owners, I'm on the phone with them all the time.
Yeah.
If a problem comes up, I will give this advice to anybody in the world. If you get a nasty gram email, pick up the phone and call them immediately.
Love that.
I have found that 99% of the time when you call that person that sends you the nasty gram, if you call them right away, if they answer the phone, that disarms them and you can talk it out, and they respect you for calling them right away, because it shows that when they can't get a hold of you for 2 days because there's a problem going on, that's the problem. Problems happen, challenges come up, but the person that jumps on that stuff and just calls them and said, hey, I got your email, let's talk this out, let's figure it out. Those people somehow get really nice on the phone really quick, and you take the bite out of it. When you get in an email war, it's more about who's going to win the war, and that just never goes well, even if you're right. So that's a big one. Is just,
have you always been like that? Because what you're telling me is you just lean into hard things, because that's really hard for people to pick up the phone and just have that. Communication solves so many things.
I think I was born a generation too late, because I still think that you should be on the phone all day. This text messaging or social media, for communication with people. Email is great in my eyes for documentation, for legal purposes, to cover your butt, to make sure that everything is extemporaneously, documented, or contemporaneously. I'm sorry. My big issue with people is they don't call. Everyone's like, oh, well, no one wants to talk on the phone anymore. I disagree. I 100% disagree, because when I talk to people on the phone, that relationship gets better.
Spot on.
If they don't call me back, I send them an email. Hey, I left you a message. Give me a call. And now the responsibility of communication is on them. I'm the one that took control of that relationship by calling them, because I'm now giving the opportunity to them to talk to me. And if they don't want to talk to me, that's on them. And every relationship, and I don't want to get petty, is about power in some level. It's always a power struggle. And I like to take the power away from the upset person and give it to myself and say, I'm calling you to solve the situation. That is not a negative power. It's not a manipulation. It's I'm taking the power to be the person that's going to hear you out and give you the opportunity to talk and listen to me and hear how we can solve the situation. Someone's going to quit paying rent. Someone's going to, trash the kitchen. Someone's going to have a party, or someone's going to get an argument with a neighbor who's a homeowner. The apartment building, the floor is going to peel up because it's a brand new floor. Your package is going to get stolen. There's all these things. The phone call is what really changes the dynamic. And it's really the big challenge with me to talk with these 20 and 30-year-old agents that work with us to just get on the phone, answer the phone.
I love that right there is a master class in just how to build relationships and solve communication. Again, solves so many things if you're just willing to pick up the phone and have a conversation with somebody, because that's all they want. That's all people want. They just want to talk through things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what
they want to be heard. They want to feel valued.
Yep.
Email is second best, but it's a distant second. Text message, I think, is lazy. And it also gets people in a lot of trouble because things get lost in translation, especially when it's 100 characters or whatever it is. You have to talk to them and you have to document it. And you have to have great presentation and be thoughtful. There's so many times I get emails and I will email back and say, hey, got your email, left you a message. And then I take a night to think about what I want to say. So that way, when I do respond with a detailed response, that it's something that is thought through. So many times people fire stuff off back and forth, and I used to do it. You ever talk to Joe Grenay? I used to send out 8-page emails, and I still do, to outline and be thorough. That's my style. But it used to be very emotionally driven, and now I've tried to remove that and be more professional in terms of I don't have to be right. I have to be professional, and I have to be thorough, and I have to find a solution, not identify who the problem is or how it's not me or it's someone else. And that was a big growth issue for me. I know I'm saying, in the teens is just, trying to find solutions for people. So
did that come from, because what you just said there as well, like just learning from things in the past, was it from mistakes or was it just?
I mean, a lot of times, I have these agents that place people. They screwed up. They didn't tell someone the right parking stall, or, their storage unit wasn't included, whatever the thing. And, instead of saying, well, hey, you didn't read your emails, which is a lot of it. We give people, step by step.
Nope.
Here's how, and I didn't read that. Well, here's the email that you didn't read. That doesn't sit well with people. There's a old saying, and I'm not going to use a gender here, but if you want to piss someone off, tell them they're wrong. If you really want to piss them off, prove it to them. So proving it to them doesn't solve the situation.
No.
They're not going to throw their hands up and say, you know what, you're right. My bad. That never happens. But give them a call and say, listen, I get it. It was in an email. There's a lot of information there. I understand how you missed it. Let's get this back on track. Now you've identified, hey, you did get the information. I understand how you missed it. Those are the things where if you can find a way to professionally reset expectations and how to move forward, people appreciate it. I'm going through a really challenging situation right now where I raised a lot of money for an apartment project, and the developer has not performed, to put it nicely. And a lot of people are in a position to lose a lot of money. And I have went above and beyond to talk to everybody, to send out the emails and set expectations, do all the things. And they've all said to me, hey, you're doing a great job. Bad things happen. I just appreciate the communication and your efforts. And for these people that have either invested with me before or it was the first time, and this probably isn't going to work out great for anybody, they're still going to work with me on the previous relationship I had and future relationships. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases and millions in other cases of people's money that, is in limbo. Not just, oh, my renter didn't pay rent on time. So those smaller issues, when we make them $1 million issues instead of $100 issues, that's what always blows my mind, where people can't just quickly get on the phone, talk to them, find a solution. And I joke all the time, my marketing budget is problem solving in many ways. Hey, don't worry about it. I'll take care of that. The handyman went over and charged him $300 to screw in a light bulb. Don't worry, I'll figure it out. And that person is always my client after that, because I took care of a little something here or there. I don't spend a lot of money on traditional marketing because I get so many referrals, and the people that are with me stick with me. The only big, loss I've had in that regard is, because of the size of the business over COVID, I had, for years before that, hired agents to lease out all these properties, and the owners all stuck with me. But these renters, almost every day over COVID, I sat at my house while everyone was on lockdown of, hey, I put in I would get emails. Here's my notice. I just bought a house. Here's my notice. I just bought a house. And it was time and time again, not with us. And it was because I took my eye off the ball with these agents to make sure they were staying on top of them and creating those relationships. So that way they refer them back to us to go help them buy a house in Eden Prairie or Edina. And it was probably $50 to $75 million in home sale production that probably I lost out on because I took everything on faith and didn't manage these people and just didn't do what I preach, which is call these people. Hey, how was your experience with this person? Hey, when you're ready to buy, because the workload got too big and the kids got too much. And I didn't do that. And it's one of the biggest misses of my career was that opportunity over COVID when the home sale market went bonkers and everyone went and bought a house.
What did you learn from it, and what did you change?
What I learned from it is that I need to not rely on agents to make the phone calls, which is the unfortunate part. But I also have to get back to relying on myself to outwork myself and be on the phone and create those relationships and manage that business. And that was a huge miss, but a huge learning lesson. Yeah.
There's a common denominator here that you're really good at betting on yourself, because you know that and again, that can get us in trouble at times. That's not what you're saying, but it's, you and you know how hard you work and the way you care about people and contact people and talk to people and stay in front of people and all those things. Mm-hmm. The other thing I learned, just listening to you, is what you just talked about, learning from your mistakes. You can either say, well, that was just COVID, that is what it is, or I got to figure this thing out, do something about it. Like you've done time and time and time again. It's crazy, man. Mm-hmm. That is, I don't know if anybody takes anything away from this. This motivates the crap out of me just to, because it helps. I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm thinking about, man, what has slipped through the cracks, people that I need to keep up with or haven't talked to, or just things like that, or the opportunities that are right in front of your face. Are you actually taking them, or you're saying, I'll get to that later, and you do your due diligence and you take them?
Well, but I've done that. I'll get to it later. I've put it off. I don't have time right now to make those 5 more calls a day and just check in with people. I joke all the time. I haven't sold anything in so long. Like sold. I haven't sold myself. I've literally just talked to people.
Yep.
Ask them the right questions and help them as best as I can. And I'm an educator, salesperson, not a salesperson. And that's the thing too, is what I've learned too is make sure that the salespeople that have worked with me, make sure you lean into what type of a salesperson you are. You don't have to be like the top guy. you have to find your route. And mine has always been an educator. Hey, here's why this is the best for you. This is why this is the second best, and outlining those things. And I think people are taught all these manipulative sales skills, the takeaway. If you just give people the information correctly and in an organized way, and do good follow-up, and really be a professional, people will work with you, regardless of your personality type. You do not have to have all these bags of tricks to turn people into a buyer or a seller or to work with you. You just have to be more professional than the other guy. You have to follow up better. You have to, give them great information, and dang it, be prepared for your meeting. And I think the lack of preparation I see in salespeople for meetings they have, is one of the biggest, I guess, misses I see in all of sales, even especially real estate, because people are door openers. Oh, you want to see these 5 properties? Great. Let's go look at them. Here's this one. Here's that one. Well, why do you want to see those? What about these are really a good fit? So many times I use people's criteria as a competition with them. Well, you told me this. Yep. Why are we looking at this if this is your criteria? Oh, well, I guess I really like the kitchen. Well, why are we looking at this? And I preach to our agents, you should never be showing someone 20 places. After about place 5 or 6, the law of diminishing return has come into effect. And now you're wasting your time and their time because you didn't control them. And that's what they're paying you to do, is to control them, to inform them.
Yep,
yes, I'm not showing you this because you need 2 cars. This does not have 2 cars for you to have. Yeah, you can go rent one or try to buy one in a few years, but this is not a great fit. There's all these people are too scared to control the situation with the client that signs an agreement asking them to control them.
Isn't that funny that we seek out people that are the expert or the professional, yet as salespeople so many times, or leaders or what have you, we wing it. We just wing it. Yeah. Instead of digging in and asking the questions, guiding, helping.
Yeah. And why not spend 20 minutes ahead of your appointment writing down, giving them all the stuff of, hey, here's what we're trying to do. Here's what we're trying to accomplish during our meeting, instead of after the appointment, 2 hours going back and forth with emails. No, that place had the fireplace. That one had the chandelier. And now, well, what about this one? And you've spent hours behind trying to reel this person back in when you could have had it all written down right there for them to see. You hand them the stuff and say, listen, this is the best. Here's why. Or even this. Hey, we're going to tour these places. We're going to start with the one that fits your criteria the least, and then work up to the best. Mm-hmm. There's a personality type that needs that, but then there's like the D personality that I'm going to take you to the best one first because I don't want to waste your time, because that's what they want to hear is you say, I'm not going to waste your time. We're just going to go to the best one first and then work down if that one doesn't work. With that type of personality, 7 out of 10 times we stop after the second one. They're like, yeah, I see what you're saying. Let's just do the first one and be done with it. And people don't learn about personalities. Go read a book about personality types. Go how to, some of them you have to build them up. Some of them you have to go straight to the thing. Some of them it's about efficiency. Some of them, they want to spend the day with you and get to know you and want you to ask them questions. They want to tell you about their kids. All those things are part of being a professional. And I think what everyone thinks as a professional is just putting the screws to someone after you said, hey, let's lock this down. This is the one. Yep. No, it's being prepared and then controlling your client to make sure they make the decision that's best for them. And I think that's what's lost these days, especially with the text messaging and the social media and the emails. It's just,
we're going to have to do a follow-up to this one, because I think purpose on this, because that your mentality and who you are and what you do. I guess there's a question too for people that are listening to this. How do they find you? How do they find Patrick? How do they work with somebody who knows what they're doing and is the best of the best of the best?
That's a great question. I would say find an expert in your geographic area is usually a really good idea. I'm not an ageist. I don't think working with the guy that's 50 means he's the expert. I think there's young realtors or salespeople in every industry that are really, really good. I would say the person that picks up the phone. I have a lot of people that email me and say, hey, I've been referred to you by so-and-so. The first thing I do is call them. And if they don't answer, I email and say, hey, let's set up a call. If you find someone that wants to talk to you and ask you the questions that you want and wants to meet you and interact with you in that way, and they show you, the types of things from your interaction, if you're interviewing 2 or 3 realtors, I would always say go with the one that wants to talk, because they're the one that cares. The ones that say, let's set up a meeting, and they don't even ask you any questions ahead of time. They just want to get you in a room to get you to sign a contract to help you buy a place. The one that asks the questions, the one that has a clear plan of, I'm going to have a phone call with you, and I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, so that way when we have a meeting, you and I are prepared for that meeting to really have a good meeting, and then we go see places. And one thing I want everyone to hear too is, if you meet with a realtor and you're going to go see places, you have to sign a contract now. Doesn't mean you have to sign an exclusive agreement for 6 months, but you have to now. So don't hold it against a realtor like, hey, listen, before I can show you places, I have to have you sign a contract with the new rules, with what happened with all the lawsuits all over the country. But that's a presentation too. Okay, when you come in, we're going to have to sign something. Here's our options on what you can sign. Those are the types of people. If they'll say, come in, we'll meet. Or if they're like, hey, no, we'll go look at places, we don't have to sign anything yet. That's someone who's not following the rules, which means they may not follow the rules with you. So that would give me another pause as a consumer of, what type of professional am I dealing with? And those are the things that I another funny joke, I used to say, one of the worst things about being a realtor is other realtors, meaning the reputation in many ways is bad, car sale, all that stuff. But one of the best things about being a realtor is other realtors, because as long as you are a really great professional, as long as you work really hard, as long as you are communicative and responsive, you're going to do great, because you'll separate yourself from all those other realtors who got in the business because it was great and they're just door openers and a warm body. I really think that if you step up your professional game, it will pay off in dividends. Huge.
Man, thank you for doing this. I truly appreciate it. This has opened my eyes to a lot of just building a business and work ethic, and how to how to understand your clients and how to work with them, and how to just be part of their life instead of just being somebody that is just there.
Yeah. One other thing I'd say is, being an expert also includes being an expert on politics, being an expert on economics, being an expert on the micro market that you're in is a huge part of it. Hey, I know about this, I know about that, all that stuff in your market, but knowing how politics and economics is playing into where the market trends are going, knowing stats, like giving people information that is helpful, not just throwing stuff at them, but giving them a story of, hey, here's why buying in this building right now is a good idea. Here's why, I think economically speaking, buying now when interest rates are 7% versus back when they're 2%, which is never coming back again. So let's just take that off the table. Being a good economic expert in terms of providing them good information as to why it's a good time to buy or a good time to sell, or maybe it's not great right now. All those things are things that you should be able to talk about, not just like, hey, here's all these houses. Let's go look at them and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, dude. That is fantastic. So, I truly appreciate it. That is, this just makes me, this is honestly, like I said before, a master's class on how to run a business and how to help your clients and how to be prepared. Those 3 things, and you are going to be uber successful. So,
well, I would tell you this: I don't know how to run a business very well. I know how to. I know how to produce, and I would tell that to everybody: go take some business classes, learn how to run a P&L, learn how to,
Educate.
budget, do all this. Yes, that's my biggest weakness, is knowing how to actually run a business. So
I love it.
I would suggest everyone go take a business class, go learn how to do all that fun stuff, which is not fun. So.
But you lean into it.
Yeah,
it's really what it is. I love it.
Thanks for joining us on the Your Limitless Leadership Podcast with Jenny and Brent Widman. We hope today's conversation inspired you to think differently about leadership, not just in your career, but in every part of your life. Remember, leadership starts with leading yourself first. It's about taking action, making bold decisions, and showing up with purpose. Now, it's time to take what you've heard today and put it into practice. Whether it's in your business, your community, your family, or your own personal growth, start leading without limits. You have the power to become the leader you're meant to be. Until next time, keep pushing your boundaries and leading with purpose.